Is 2025 the single worst year for credit cards that we've ever experienced? To some, that question may seem a little bit dramatic, whereas to others, you're silently thinking absolutely yes in your head when I ask you that there. Regardless, I think we can all agree that there's been a lot of negative things that have happened in just the past few months. I'm talking about annual fee increases. At the same time, we've seen point devaluations and perks, instead of being added, are being rolled back, and all of us are expected to accept this as the new norm. All of this has hit us pretty hard. And while this may seem really bad, you may be surprised to hear that there are some really compelling arguments saying that this isn't really the end of a credit card era. In fact, it may just be the beginning of what's coming next. That's why in this video, I want to share 3 specific things that will help inform your credit card strategy, not only for 2025, but for the next few years. I'm going to talk about the golden age of credit cards and when things were amazing in this game, how that directly impacts what we're seeing right now in 2025. I want to share how I think you can still dominate the credit card game today, as well as prepare yourself for what's coming next. To provide some context, let's start by going back in time to an age where things didn't feel so doom and gloom. I'm talking when annual fees on credit cards were pretty normal and easy to justify. There were perks on every card, and it seemed a great redemption was just around the corner. If I had to assign a time range to that feeling, that golden age, it would be from 2016 to 2022. The points guide specifically calls this out and cites it as the 2010s, but depending on where you land and what cards you had in those eras, it may be a personal experience with some good memories that ranges somewhere between those dates. Now, just what did things look like when times were so good? Well, let's dive into some of the biggest names and see what at that time was the most popular in the credit card game. The Citi Prestige, which existed between 2010 and 2021, was probably in its heyday around 2015 to 2016. This was Citi's luxury credit card at the time, which had then gone dormant for a few years and has now been replaced by the Citi Strata Elite. For a while, it was widely considered one of the best, if not the single best premium travel credit card on the market. Here's what it had to offer. For only a $450 annual fee, which sounds like a mid-tier credit card in today's day and age, you could get $250 in annual airline credits, 4th night free on hotel bookings, unlimited Admirals Club access, unlimited priority pass access with guests, a TSA pre-check credit, and not to mention a really straightforward way to book American Airlines flights at 1.6 cents per point minimum through the travel portal. Now, you could only imagine if a card had this much value today. Pretty much be the only card anybody would ever recommend. However, let's also look in 2016 at what the Chase Sapphire Reserve was like. That was a card that hit the market that year, and quite frankly, it just blew people away. Also at $450 on an annual fee, it still had its $300 travel credit and a 100,000 point sign-up bonus, the classic 3x back on general travel, but also it's 3x back on dining as well. Still that great list of transfer partners and a guaranteed 1.5 cent per point redemption value within Chase's travel portal. Of course, that's something we've lost very recently. In fact, people actually loved the launch of the Sapphire Reserve so much, Chase actually ran out of the metal that it used to produce that card. Of course, we can't forget about the Amex Platinum. In the early 2010s, it started with a $450 annual fee, which seemed to be a common theme for a price point. Then it did bump up to $550, while offering a lot of the same perks and benefits that still remain on the card today. As we move towards 2025, the last big breaking point and push for probably the peak of when everything got so good was when the pandemic hit and people stopped traveling. At this time, of course, the banks didn't want to stop making money or getting people out there invested in their products, so we saw things like the Capital One Venture X hit the scene in 2021. Finally, we also saw in the 2020s lower tier cards like the Citi Custom Cash launch in 2021, still with its $500 spending cap on the top spend category of your choice. Of course, in 2021 dollars, $500 then is more like $600 now. And just think about how powerful that could be. Of course, those are just a few of the cards that were on the market. And I wanted to paint the picture for you so you could see just how good things were with all the different choices you would have had back then to pick a card or pick multiple cards to experience the incredible benefits that were out there for the taking. This was the golden age where competition for you as a consumer was fierce, and banks and issuers were even willing to lose a ton of money just to put themselves in your good graces. In fact, it's estimated that within the first 5 years of the Chase Sapphire Reserve being launched, Chase lost nearly $2 billion. Now, while that's fun to think about, the reason I spent the time building what that era was like is because fast forward, it directly impacts what we're seeing today. In stark contrast to what people like to think of as the golden age, we're now in what some people are calling the stolen age, or what I think of more likely as the great credit card reset. From 2022 to 2025, it seems that all of the effort that credit card companies put into getting themselves into your wallet started to pay off. That, combined with a massive travel boom, suddenly left you and I looking around, wondering where all the perks and benefits went. Well, now that this is such a popular hobby, activity, or just normal people are understanding the value that could be had in credit cards, suddenly there's so much more demand for these top credit cards. All you need to do is look at Amex's revenue since 2020, and on this chart, you'll see that it's truly exploded. This means that those issuers, Amex, Chase, Citi, etc., they're now operating from a position of strength. Instead of trying to just acquire consumers and oftentimes losing money, now they're focused on maximizing profitability, and oftentimes that comes in the luxury market, where they can make more off of each person holding a luxury card than they could at one of the lower card offerings. So that has all led to what we've seen in 2025. Most notable have been the annual fee increases. Some of these are huge. We've seen the Chase Sapphire Reserve go from $550 to $795. We've seen the Chase United lineup of credit cards all go about a 30% increase. And the refreshed Amex Platinum, which could launch any day, could set the new highest price point of any general premium travel credit card. However, at the same time, they've also been making the currency we've worked so hard to earn worth that much less. Chase, of course, has had a massive devaluation in the points that you natively can redeem in their portal. Gone is the 1.5 cent per point guarantee with the Sapphire Reserve, and even the nice 1.25x with the Sapphire Preferred has now been replaced by a points boost feature, which Chase argues will give you opportunities for even more value than ever before. But in reality, we know that we're now just redeeming Chase Ultimate Rewards points, mostly for 1 cent each, in their portal. This has been hitting other brands too. Marriott Bonvoy has seen a big devaluation across their points, and even Hyatt, which has long stood the test of time as having great point valuations, has raised the points needed for redemption on a lot of their properties in the past year. And of course, we're all watching Citi, which recently opened back up the gates for American Airlines as a direct transfer partner. But the negative effect of that could be in a few months, American Airlines miles being decreased in their value as well. Finally, it'd just be wrong of me to ignore some of our favorite card nerfs of the last year, highlighted most spectacularly by the US Bank Smartly Visa, the 4% all-encompassing cashback card, being nerfed into absolute oblivion with restrictions at spending caps. But we've also seen favorites like the Venture X lose things like its lounge access for guests as well. Don't even get me started on the couponing movement, which has been fully embraced by American Express, copied then by Chase in their airline lineup of cards with United, and also prominently featured on their Sapphire Reserve refresh. When you put all of this together, it's a little bit depressing, and that's why people are greatly reducing their activity in the credit card game, and some on the outside looking in are just deciding it's not worth even starting. However, to bring this full circle, we still have two critical questions to answer. My judgment of 2025, and given all of these changes, if it's truly been the worst year for credit cards that we've ever seen. Even more importantly than that, how you can still dominate the credit card game regardless of all of these negative things going on. Let me first give you those actionable steps you can take before delivering my verdict on 2025. From my time studying the credit card game, there are 4 things you can do right now to position yourself for success and protect yourself from all of these bad changes happening recently. The first is understand the opportunity. Focusing on high-value, mid-tier travel credit cards is the place to be right now. In my opinion, the premium cards have gone too inflated. The annual fees don't match up with the perks and real value you get as a cardholder, so I like to advise people to stay away from those for the most part. What I've found is you can get 80 to 90% of the value of a premium credit card in the mid-tier version of that card. Think mid-tier hotel cards, mid-tier general travel cards, and those cards often have annual fees that are half or more of the premium version. If you want some ideas, I made an entire video breaking down the best mid-tier travel credit cards, and those are the ones you should be focused on right now. Second, you have to do an even better job than ever before of concentrating your time and your effort in strategically getting those highest possible sign-up bonus offers. You can do this in two ways. First, sign up at the link below in the description of this video for free email alerts, where you can opt into specific cards you're looking at and get notified whenever there's an elevated sign-up offer. So you can compare the current offers that exist with what's happened historically. You can see if you're getting a good deal and also predict when the next best offer may be coming, so you can decide if you want to wait just a little bit longer before pulling the trigger on your dream credit card. Next, make sure you're managing your cards effectively. I've been using Max Rewards, which has controlled my 10 plus card lineup to make sure I'm not missing out on any hidden value. I'm getting all of my credit card offers added automatically, so when I'm spending, I'm instantly earning any bonus opportunities for travel points or cash back. And I'm not making any mistakes as I try to get the most possible value out of my lineup. I've got a discount code for viewers of this channel down below in the description, and it's tools like this that are going to help you manage when value is harder and harder to come by. Finally, for some people out there who are on the fence, I encourage you to not be afraid to simplify your setup. Don't be too afraid to consider canceling a credit card with an annual fee that's not providing you too much value these days. Yes, your credit score will likely take a hit. However, that will just be for a short period of time and it will rebound with consistent good habits over time. Of course, you have to be smart about this and consider your own financial situation, but oftentimes you can cut bait and be okay in the long run. Second, don't overlook product change opportunities to $0 annual fee cards that won't hurt your credit score. I'd always consider this option and exhaust that on the phone with your issuer to make sure you've looked at all possible product change opportunities before deciding on actually canceling a card. And also, in the name of simplification, I'm always a fan of getting a good solid hybrid wallet, mixing some cashback cards with a few specific travel cards that earn points and miles, and that will set you up for an easy to manage wallet while still getting a lot of the perks that you want out of your lineup. Now, to close things out, I'll answer the question directly. Yes, I truly do believe that we've actually lived through the worst year for credit cards that you and I can probably remember. However, like I just pointed out, if you follow those 4 actionable steps, you'll still be able to dominate this credit card market. And there are value sweet spots out there that you can really enjoy the perks and continue to experience more using these as a tool. Finally, where I believe that this will all lead will be a massive rebound in 2026 or 2027. This game is like a pendulum, and in the golden age, things swung honestly way too far towards us. Banks clamped down on that, but they've overstepped. I'm predicting that people will not buy into these high annual fee cards like the banks are predicting. And we're going to start to see new products and different twists on value that banks will bring back that will be much more in our favor in the years to come. If you enjoyed this video, it'd mean a ton if you subscribe to the channel for more content like this, shared it with a friend, or even just liked it to help the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.